Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new, my name is Abigail, and I have special needs. I have a feeding tube, and I post or share what my life is like having special needs and health issues. And one of the most common questions I get, not just online, also in person, is can I eat by mouth, and if so, what does that look like? So I technically say no, but let me explain it. So if you don't know, I have gastroparesis, which is where my stomach is partially paralyzed from a previous surgery that didn't go right. I also have a hernia that wasn't able to get fixed. With those two things combined, I end up having to get a feeding tube. I have a J tube that goes to my intestines instead of my stomach, so that I can get nutrition. And then I got a G tube for the handful of things that I can have by mouth. So the confusing thing to people, and I kind of understand how it would be confusing, is when I say that I can have things by mouth, do you consider that eating? Most of the time, no, because the very few things that I can have by mouth I don't really consider them like food items. So like, if my family were to make a meal, we were to sit at the table together, it's very unlikely that I would be able to have any of those what people consider food items by mouth. Now, this is where it confuses people, because some people see me have a few items by mouth, a handful of things, and they get confused, like, how can you have these certain things and not that? Basically, I think the easiest way to explain it is there's what's called venting. So basically, whenever I have something by mouth, it has to be small enough to go through my extension. I have an extension that hooks to my G tube that I vent out of. If you don't know what venting is, it's basically like getting sick, but instead of getting sick by mouth, I get sick through my tube, through the extension. And that way, my calories come from my formula and my feeding tube pump is hooked up to my J tube, which goes to my intestines, where I can hold my calories down, but I can still have a handful of things by mouth. So if you were to ask me if I could eat by mouth, technically no, because like I said, most of the time when people say eat by mouth, they're talking about food items. And the type of things that I can have by mouth are things like certain kinds of candy, certain kinds of ice cream, and things like peanut butter most of the time goes okay. But it's such a short list that I don't really consider it eating. It's more of like a snack, I guess, if you could put it that way. But the things that I do have by mouth have to be able to melt enough to go through my extension. And that does confuse a lot of people. You say like the purpose of the G-tube for me specifically is that I can still have certain kinds of candy and ice cream by mouth and just get sick through my extension, because even though I'm technically full, because my feeding tube gives me the calories and the nutrition I need, I don't technically have to have anything by mouth besides water. But I do find that I do crave things. Kind of like for the sake of chewing on something. So like, I like things like gum is good. M&Ms melt enough. Peanut butter M&Ms melt enough. No, not the nut kind, but just the peanut butter ones. Right now, gum has been one of my favorite things, and hard candy that's like Jolly Ranchers, something like that. That things that mostly melt into a liquid, and that's why I say things like ice cream. So I don't really consider myself able to eat by mouth because it's not really like food items. But I am satisfied because I do stay full because of my formula, and I do get to have a handful of things by mouth to like chew on. And like I said, if I have like peanut butter M&Ms or something like that, I can obviously swallow that and that will go through my tube. My extension. But I think that's one of the most common questions I get asked. People get really confused about that. And also, having a J-tube isn't as common as having a G-tube. Most people have a G-tube and it just goes straight to their stomach and they get their feedings that way. But I can't get my feedings in my G-tube because my stomach doesn't work right. So, that's why I get my feedings in my J-tube. And also, another common thing that people wonder is, do we do basically like bogus feedings, where sometimes people on a feeding tube will get the syringe and they pour a certain amount of, I guess you could say, puree food or something like that into a syringe, and then they give it all in like one big syringe. We don't do that. You can't do that with a J-tube because the J-tube goes into the intestines, and it's just not something that works with the intestines like it does the stomach. So we don't do bogus feedings. And I know that some people on feeding tubes, like if they just have the G-tube, they sometimes have like puree food. I think that's how you say it, where it's kind of like baby food in a way, where they can put through their G-tube and get like extra calories that way. I don't do that. My calories specifically come from my formula. My formula gives me all the calories I need. I can just have my formula and be completely fine. Because I can't technically eat by mouth as far as like food, my formula gives me all the calories I need. So technically the only thing I have to have by mouth is water. So, and I do want to add this because I think that this is also confusing for people. If something were to happen, like if I were to get sick or something were to happen where I'm not able to drink as much water, do we get worried about me getting dehydrated? And actually not as much, because I do flush my tubes several times a day, which means putting water through the tube so that it doesn't clog. So every 4 hours I'm putting water through my tube. And then if for some reason I get sick or something happens where I feel like I might be getting a bit dehydrated, but for some reason I don't feel like I could drink that much, I just put extra water through my tube so that I don't get dehydrated. So most of the time I just drink enough water by mouth, but like I said, if I'm sick or like the day got away from me and I wasn't able to drink very much, we just put extra through my tube, so that's not really a worry. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe down below, let me know if you have any more questions for me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye everyone.